Hello, everybody. My name is Ben. I'm one of the gameplay developers here at 1047 Games. And today I want to take some time to review the Meridian weapons sandbox and sort of give some more insights there. So I've definitely noticed that a lot of people on the Discord have been wanting to see some numerical values associated with the weapons. We obviously don't have a formal way to do this in game currently, and I asked Design if I could go ahead, and make a video showing some of these stats off, as well as some of my personal preferences as to how to build them out. I'll also be going over attachments. I think there's a lot of things the community might not fully understand quite yet about how those work. So yeah, I'm just excited to shed some light, I suppose, on how all of these work. Before I jump too far in, I want to talk maybe a little bit about myself and give some disclaimers that go with that. So, as I mentioned, I'm one of the gameplay developers here. I don't actually work on weapons. I work on game modes, so this is definitely not like my main area of expertise, you could say. But I did actually build a lot of the prototypes for the Meridian guns, as well as quite a few of the power weapons that are in the game. So I have some familiarity with the system, and yeah, I'm just excited to shed some light, I suppose. A couple other disclaimers I'll add beforehand. First of all, this is not an official 1047 Games video. I'm doing this of my own accord. The only real sanctioned thing I have for this is I've been told I can show off the weapon stats, the actual values, so that is exciting for me. But past that, these are just my personal opinions that I'm sharing when I talk about build crafting and so on. I'm sure plenty of you are going to disagree with me on quite a few things, especially when we get to attachments. More on that soon. Past that, another disclaimer I should give is that there's many dozens of stats, actually, for each of these guns, and a lot of them, frankly, just aren't going to be that interesting to you guys. A lot of them are very similar across the different, factions weapons, so, it's just going to be pretty much an abbreviated version of those. I cherry-picked some stats that I figured you guys would find most interesting. Let's see, past that, this is going to be a pretty bare-bones videos, I'm going to be doing a lot of hemming and hawing, probably missay some things. It's a busy week at the company, so I don't really have time to edit this, as you might imagine. Probably not going to be music in the background or anything like that. But, we'll see if my production quality improves if I do some more videos. But with that out of the way, I'd love to get going on this. So for our first weapon stats that we have here, I'm going to start off with the pistols, because for the primaries, I talk a little bit about pairing suggestions. And so to understand those, I think you need to really understand the pistols, what their strengths and weaknesses are, so on and so forth. So without further ado, I'm going to get started with the Helios here. First, I'm going to go over sort of the format of how I have all this laid out, and then I'll go into the stats, what they mean, and then we'll start talking about the actual guns themselves. So each of these sections, you can see I have this table where I've added these little lines. You can see right here, so this is going to be the weapon name, so the Helios is the semi-auto pistol for Meridian. The stats column is going to be some stats number. Boosted stats, I should clarify, this column sort of cuts off right above these drop-off multipliers I have. But you can treat boosted stats as if there's an attachment that modifies the value of what a stat would be. I actually calculate it for you guys here, so you can see what it'll actually look like. Over here, I just have attachments and their effects, more on that later, as well as my recommendations over in this area to the right. So a lot more on all that later. But yeah, let's kick this off using the Helios as an example. So the Helios semi-pistol, it's got damage, so it's got body shot damage of 13.5 and a headshot damage value of 19. So I'm listing the body shot first, the headshot second here. Obviously no attachment that boosts that. Shots to kill, that's how many shots it's going to take to kill someone at just standard HP. So if you played our second alpha, you'll recall we had those chaos variants with like 20 HP. I'm not doing calculations for that here. This is just your standard 100 HP player. So you can see if you nail all headshots, it should take 6 shots to kill within max range. And then it'll be 8 shots to kill if you're body shotting all within that close range without drop off. Fire rate, so this may be a little confusing, but fire rate in most scenarios is going to refer to the time between bullets that get fired. So you can see here the Helios pistol, we can fire off a shot every 0.14 seconds. This is actually a pretty solid refire time for a semi-auto weapon. We'll have some other ones to compare with soon. Mag size, you know, how much is in the mag, 15. Reserves, how many reserves you spawn with, so 30. So you'd get a total of 45 bullets for this weapon every time you spot in. Vertical recoil and horizontal recoil. I'll be frank, I don't really understand what units these are, but I can tell you that high numbers means a lot and low numbers means not so much. So you can see here the vertical recoil is about 4 times stronger than your horizontal, and we've got these two values for those. Left chance, this is the odds that the horizontal recoil kicks to the right or to the left. In this case, you know, it's 0.5, meaning it's going to kick equally both directions in theory. I believe all the weapons in this video actually have a 0.5 left chance, so nothing too interesting there. The spread half angle is a little bit interesting. So to understand spread half angle, the way that spread works in this game is we basically sample randomly from a cone. And what that cone looks like is something kind of like this. So you can imagine this is sort of your gun where the bullets are coming out of. More accurately, the center of your screen, I suppose, but we'll call it the gun. This is sort of the direction that you're pointing down in as the cone gets wider. And then this beta here, this angle is the half angle. So the way spread works is we basically pick a random spot in this cone, wherever it lands, based on this half angle and how big it is. So if we have a spread half angle of 0.5, that means that this is going to be 0.5 degrees, this angle here. And as the cone goes further and further out, you can imagine the effects of spread get larger and larger in terms of how much you're missing as a result of it. And then here you can see the boosted stat. There's an attachment, namely the laser, that multiplies this by 0.75. So we get a very, very nice you know, boosted spread. Instead of 0.5 degrees, it's 0.375 degrees. Last but not least, the main sort of stats we have to explain are drop-off. So this is 3 rows. The multiplier, this is how much damage at each drop-off point you're doing of the max. So you want to read these sort of as like grouped columns, so to speak. So like right here at a distance of 0, we are basically getting full damage. You know, you're doing that full 19 damage on a headshot. But then if you get past 30 meters or so, this 0.9 is going to kick in. And so then rather than doing 19 damage per shot, you're going to be doing whatever 19 times 0.9 is. So yeah, you'd be doing 17.1 damage per headshot there. So that's good to know. Extended barrel. So the way extended barrel works, I suppose this is a nice segue into attachments. So all the pistols have 3 attachments. So extended barrel, the way this works, is it's going to multiply the distance calculated that you're firing at by 0.9. This doesn't mean it's going to shorten the drop-off distance by 0.9. It actually kind of does the opposite. So let's say I was shooting someone from like 33 meters in this example. It's going to instead calculate the drop-off as if I were at 0.9 of that 33 meters, which is 30. So it's effectively extending your distance by around 1.1. So right here with extended barrel in this row, you can see what the actual cutoffs are versus the basic ones. So like you get an extra 10 meters of drop-off for this final column with that. Piercing ammo. This one's really interesting and not something that's explained in game, I don't think. So piercing ammo does 2 things. So the first one is that it's actually going to let you over-penetrate enemies, so you can fire through them, hit multiple targets. Great. Honestly, the part, though, that I'm more interested in is it actually expands the radius of your sort of bullet magnetism, like the auto-aim cone from your reticle, by 1.1. So your shots are actually a little bit more forgiving. You'll end up hitting more targets than you will typically with this attachment. I have more direct numbers, on this at the top when I start going over the Synapse auto rifle. And then last but not least, laser. I kind of talked about this already. You get a more forgiving half angle of 0.75. So with all these stats in mind, you know, the Helios, it's got solid damage, pretty middling, very good damage drop-off for a gun, very good ammo economy. You can get multiple kills per magazine pretty easily, I would say. The recoil's not too bad since it's a semi-auto, and the spread is not that bad at all either. It's pretty standard spread for a gun, I'd say. So for me at least, I like to use piercing ammo the most, just for sort of more forgiving shots. It lets you really nail headshots a bit easier and hone in on that 6 shot to kill limit. After that, I like the laser just to reduce that cone of fire even more. Because frankly, the extended barrel, I'm just not really sure this is a gun that's good to use at range. I would say the Helios really sort of excels at finishing off wounded targets. You can definitely like 1v1 with it and use it as your main gun as well. Obviously, it's going to be less good than a primary most likely, but it actually is pretty good sustained damage output, especially with such a fast fire rate. I believe this is maybe one of, if not the fastest semi-auto pistols in the game. So if you're really staying on top of that fire rate, you have a good trigger finger and you can nail your shots, like you should be killing with this no problem. But it does tend to suffer a little bit at that extended range, especially if you skip the laser and only have an extended barrel. A lot of those shots are likely just going to be flying way off, so I'm not a huge fan of that. Moving on though, we've got the Coil. So these stats are mostly the same. I'm just going to really quickly go over the important ones and the new ones. So you'll notice on a body shot you get a 40 damage and headshot you get 60. This means that as long as you're within that maximum damage range before it starts falling off, you're actually able to get a 2-shot kill, which is really massive with this thing. On top of that, it has a 0.3 second charge time. So this is the time that it takes to charge up before you fire. And then fire rate here means the time it has to cool down before you can start charging another shot. So effectively, you can add these together and get the total amount of time to fire each shot, as it were. Pretty small mag in reserves, but you know that's to be expected with something like this. Recoil doesn't matter so much here, just because it's so slow firing with the charge up. The drop off is extremely large for a pistol. It has the furthest drop off in the game. And because of all these factors, I feel that the Coil really excels in a few capacities. You can use it to really chunk some damage before you begin a gunfight, which can be quite nice. Sorry, I'm just adjusting some stuff here. Rather than that, if you'd rather just use it as a primary, it's certainly viable that way. I like to pair it with closer range guns for that, so I have a little more reach. You can definitely beam people across the map with this. So with all that in mind, I'd say extended barrel is probably going to be my favorite attachment for the Coil, followed by piercing ammo just for more forgiving shots, and last but not least, the laser. Last but not least, we probably have the most interesting weapon of the Meridian pistols, the Tetra. And this is... I can't really explain yet, but you'll see why this is so interesting. So it's got pretty solid damage values. You can see it's about 7 to 9 shots to kill. Because it fires 4 bullets per burst, this means you can, in theory, 2-burst people, as long as you're getting at least one headshot should actually help you hit that breakpoint, assuming you're not falling victim to damage drop-off. Again, we have some new stats here as well. So the burst delay is the time you have between bursts. So when one burst finishes, you have to wait for the burst delay to complete before you can begin firing the next one. And then the bullet delay is additional time between the bullets within the burst. So you can see, because this is firing 4 bullet bursts, and we have a burst delay of 0.04 seconds, this means it takes about 0.12 seconds of delay total within firing all 4 of those shots, because you delay 3 times there. Past that, we do have spread on this. Take note of that for later, I would say. And pretty mild recoil overall. Definitely the smallest of the Meridian pistols, but you do have to bear in mind you're getting hit with this recoil 4 times per burst, so you definitely have to do some active management. Given this, I would say the laser is really going to be your best bet. You want to make sure you can hit those headshots while still staying on target on those body shots. So for me, I like to sort of aim at center of mass and let climb up a little bit into the head. And having a laser helps those last shots not fall victim to too much cone or spread, I suppose I should say, spread issues. Past that, piercing ammo, for similar reasons, is just very nice for hitting those shots that might otherwise miss due to the auto aim bonus. Also, because you're spraying a bit more with it with the burst, you might be able to penetrate targets a bit easier. And then last but not least, extended barrel. I just don't think this works super well at range. The recoil's a little bit unforgiving, and you couple that with the spread, it just tends to struggle out there. But now, without further ado, I'm going to move on to the primary weapons, and this is likely what you guys are going to care about more. So, we're going to kick off with the Synapse here. This is the Meridian auto rifle. And you can see the damage values are quite interesting here. There's decimals. So this is partly why I'm glad to be sharing this video with you guys is, these decimals are hard to catch with testing. So here you go. Straight from the actual gun itself, so to speak. Shots to kill, you can see it's pretty high for an assault rifle, but not too awful, especially given that the fire rate is far lower than any of the other assault rifles in the game. It also has the largest mag size by far, with a size of 40. You get plenty of reserves as a result as well, so ammo is not too much of an issue here typically. The recoil is definitely it's the lowest of all the assault rifles, but not by much. And when you factor in how fast the fire rate actually is, this adds up pretty rapidly, I would say, compared to some of the other assault rifles. I feel a lot of the ARs you don't really need a grip, but here, I'll go over it more later, but I think it really shines here. Past that spread, this standard 0.5 I've been pointing out, and then it has the same drop-off as the burst pistol and the semi-auto pistol do. You'll see this is a pretty common drop-off model we use. Now, for attachments. So, the extended barrel, you can see it's the same as the pistols. Extended mag here, you're getting 10 extra shots, so 40 to 50. All of the ARs give you 10 more ammo, so comparatively to the other assault rifles, you're actually getting slightly less from a percentage standpoint than the others. If they're all granting 10, but the others have a mag size of 30, it's much more meaningful there than here. But, 10 ammo is never a bad thing, I would say. Past that, the laser again is pretty typical. Also, bear in mind, even though it's multiplying by 0.75, because it's a cone and ends up being a circle, this multiplier actually, because it's altering the angle, it reduces the cone area by a significantly larger margin. So even though it looks like it's, only a 25% boost, you're really getting something closer to 44% here, reduction of the total area where bullets can possibly land. So this is a very nice attachment. It's almost effectively cutting most of your spread in half. And then, because most of those shots on average are going to be landing near the middle, it's just very solid for making things into laser beams. Rapid fire. So this is a controversial attachment. I know a lot of people say it's a must take. And on some guns, I would tend to agree. But I certainly would argue that a lot of the guns the community is saying it's a must take on are perhaps not benefiting as much from it as you might expect. So for most of the guns in the game, there are a couple exceptions, but for most of them, it actually reduces your fire rate, or fire delay rather, by 4%. This is a little confusing. So the time between bullets, you're getting 4% off of each of those ticks, which can be a lot, and sometimes it can be inconsequential, so we'll go over that. And then last but not least, we've got the grip here, which reduces your felt recoil by 0.6. So almost slicing that recoil in half, which is fantastic. So with that in mind, the Synapse overall, it's pretty powerful. It's very quick, I would say. If you can land your shots, the time to kill is incredibly fast. If you whiff them, though, it definitely starts to feel a little bit like a pea shooter, especially compared to some of the other assault rifles. The recoil is low per shot, but certainly builds up because of the fast fire rate. And yeah, I suppose that's the main thing to say there. So one thing I want to draw attention to, though, in talking about rapid fire, you see the fire rate here. So ordinarily it's 0.085 seconds between shots, and then that rapid fire reduces it to 0.0816 seconds between shots. So I'm not sure how much fire rate's actually tied to frame rate in our game, but depending on how much, this might almost not even do anything for you. Don't don't quote me on that, just a gut shot based off what I've seen in other games. This fire rate is incredibly fast. Someone's obviously welcome to crunch the numbers for RPM if they'd like to in the comments. I was a little too lazy to do that. But you're only getting about 0.003 seconds off in terms of time between shots, which in the grand scheme of things, I would say doesn't quite matter as much as landing your shots to begin with. So with that in mind, the grip, as I mentioned before, is something I always take on the Meridian AR. It really cuts down on this recoil quite a bit, you can see here. These are the recoil values with it and without. This really just helps turn it into more of a laser beam, I suppose, that you can nail people across the map with, especially on those larger arena maps and onslaught modes. Because of that fast fire rate, it really builds up. And then with that, I usually pair one of three things with it. So I quite like the laser, just because, again, it doubles down on that sort of identity of, okay, let's build something that can really just hammer someone. So if you're nailing headshots with this, like that 8-shot shot to kill rather, will just go by super quickly. So I'm a big fan of that. You might be okay with just getting the 11 body shot as well, but I can definitely feel when I'm nailing those headshots, and so this laser really just helps you keep on target with that half cone area reduction for spread. The extended barrel for onslaught, again, building into just making it more versatile. I mean, this thing's already fantastic up close, guys. You have to bear in mind. So slapping the extended barrel on for onslaught really just helps push it out into being able to handle most, if not every, engagement range you're going to be dealing with on the map. You can see at a point you're gaining like 10 more units of distance before you drop off, so that can be 10 more meters, sorry. So that can be very useful. And last but not least, the mag, even though it doesn't do quite as much as some of the other ARs, which I think keeps it from being great, it's still good, just to have an extra 10 shots. You can obviously get an extra kill off of that if you're nailing your headshots, so very, very solid attachment. Okay, I would say extended barrel in arena modes. I'm just not really sure how much it actually does for you. In most arena maps, most of your engagements are likely going to be within this 30-meter range with an AR there, so I personally tend not to take it, but you definitely can for something like bypass, for instance. And then rapid fire, as I mentioned before, I just don't think it does that much for the Synapse. I avoid it here. There's other guns where I'd say it's a must-have, but here I'm just maybe not the biggest fan. Sidearms that I like to pair with it, Coil just for some extra punch. Tetra is just a very nice sustained damage option if your primary runs out of ammo. And then Helios is probably my last pick just because you don't typically leave a lot of people with chip damage with this gun. It's typically you either melt them or get melted as a result. So I tend to find that Helios struggles a little bit as a sidearm here. Time Bubble really just ramps that fire rate up to 11 though, way far more than rapid fire ever would. And so this is my go-to equipment for this. I think it's just such a nice pick. The Regenerate as well gives you a little more sustainability in gunfights. And Radar gives you good info, but it doesn't necessarily help too much with the gun itself. Also, before I continue, I'll say when I'm ranking this equipment, I'm ranking it not by necessarily how good it is in a team context. Obviously, Meridian's very built around team utility. In fact, I'd say Radar is one of my favorite pieces of equipment in the game. But rather, I'm ranking it based off how much I think the equipment helps you get kills with the gun. So a little bit of a difference there. All right, moving on. So we've got the Hyperline. And so the Hyperline's a little bit interesting. It's a very fast-firing carbine, as you can see. Takes quite a few shots to kill for a weapon in that class, but you can see the fire rate is pretty solid for a semi-auto weapon. It's a little bit slower than the Helios, as you can see, about 0.08 seconds, so about 50% slower, but it still feels pretty solid to use. The mag size is decent. The recoil is not too much to deal with the fire rate. One important call out as well is that the spread is 0. So our carbines have no spread in the game. They're laser accurate up to your reticle. So as long as your reticle is pointed in the right spot, it'll go in the right spot. which means that we no longer have the laser attachment for this. Instead, that gets replaced with this piercing ammo attachment. So as I mentioned before, it's multiplying that auto aim radius, which results in about a 1.21 multiplicative sized auto aim circle around your reticle compared to usual. And then the drop-offs they match the rest of the carbines in the game. All pretty standard. You can see that extended barrel definitely pushes it out quite a bit, but it only starts at about 50 meters, which is still a pretty good distance. So with all this, I always take the piercing ammo on this thing. I think just having the extra consistency on a carbine is make or break. Those shots that you wouldn't land ordinarily are just so huge to get in. Also, if you're playing at a little bit longer distance, you can often pick off people as they're exiting their spawn point with other players. So the overpen is quite nice. Good, I would say the extended mag, it bumps it up by 8 shots, which is more than half the mag size. Very significant increase there. It definitely is good total ammo to begin with, so I'm not too worried about it in that context, but definitely I think it's nice to have the extra bullets. I don't find the recoil too bad. If you do, you can take a grip. And then extended barrel, I might get some weird looks for this one. This is one of the only carbines, maybe the only one that I don't usually recommend this on, but it's okay for onslaught. I just think that because it's so fast firing, you're going to be falling victim to the recoil pattern if you're spamming it at long range, probably more so than a lack of damage. I'd say this carbine definitely excels more in mid-range type situations, so for me, I tend to just portal in rather than worry about hitting better breakpoints with the extended barrel. And then, again, in Arena, those maps are so small that I don't think it's much worth using that there. And then the rapid fire, as I mentioned before, it's a fast carbine. Sure, you're knocking off about a little under 0.01 seconds between shots, but you have to bear in mind you have to actually be nailing those shots to match that fire rate, which I think a lot of people don't necessarily do. And then on top of that, it's already just so consistent and strong in other ways. I think it just helps to make it sort of more suitable for taking out larger crowds of people. That longer amount of shots can really hurt it in anything more than a 1v1 situation, so I definitely like to bring stuff to up its crowd killing capabilities. Last but not least, the queue time I should mention is important on semi-auto guns, so this is basically the amount of time between shots where once your shot finishes, if you press the mouse button like 0.22 seconds before your next one's ready, it'll actually queue up the shot and then fire when it finally is. So that's an important stat to know for the carbines. And then this is the lowest of the 3 carbines, so sort of a L stat there, you could say. But with all that in mind, I love the Tetra as a sidearm for it. I think it really covers its weaknesses, which is very close range rapid DPS. The Tetra has it in spades. The Helios is solid too. Oftentimes, you'll get someone pretty low up close and you want something a little bit more consistent to finish them off, and the Helios certainly fits the bill. And then last but not least, I'm just not sure the Coil is the best pairing option here. I find the Coil works best as sort of a long distance laser beam, so the Hyperline already sort of fills that slot. So I like to have something that rounds out my loadout a little bit more. As for equipment, Time Bubble just really helps you send those shots out a bit faster and also gives you some defensive utility. If someone runs up at you, you can actually just throw the bubble at them to slow them down. And then as a result of that, you can then, fire away or whatever, and they're super stuck, so you can get some headshots and hit that optimal 4 shot to kill rather than 5, assuming you get a few headshots. The radar is nice just to make sure no one's rushing you again. I like to use it sort of in front of where I'm shooting just to look for red dots sneaking up at me so I know to fall back if someone's rushing me. And then last but not least, I think the Regen 8 is it's a good choice, but you're usually not going to be in the thick of it quite as much with this gun, so I tend to avoid it. Next up, the Charger, which is one of my favorites, definitely quite interesting. So you'll notice here the headshot and body shot damage are interestingly the same here. It's just going to be, 25 no matter where you hit them. So center mass landing your shots is going to be the move. You can see here the charge time is about 0.65 seconds, and then the delay afterwards is 0.7. So you have to wait this long in between shots, 1.35, meaning you're really suffering if you don't get that one-shot kill or finish someone off with something else. So more on that later. The mag size and reserves also hurt a little bit. You only get about 20 shots total every spawn in with this, so you really have to make those count. Recoil doesn't really matter here because it's a charge gun. And then we have the spread pattern. So the spread's in I said square, I suppose it's a bit more of a cross. You get one dot right above your reticle, one right below, one to the right, one to the left, and none of those are actually in the middle. So it's an empty in the middle, so you really want to be making sure all 4 of those points are actually on the enemy before you fire. The laser spread pattern is the size with the laser. So obviously there's no random spread here, so instead we just take these points and multiply them to bring them in closer, so it makes it quite a bit more accurate. It also has by far the lowest range of any shotgun. So the key things here are just, it's very low range, but it's very, very accurate for a shotgun, very easy pellet pattern to memorize. Intensely high damage, but as soon as you whiff a shot, you're really struggling. Also, key point here, rapid fire on this does a couple of things. It actually reduces the charge time, so you can see you're actually getting shots out roughly 0.11 seconds faster with the charge, or with rapid fire than without, which is huge. And it's a 0.92 multiplier rather than 0.96, which is great. We also have the fast melee attachment option, which speeds up your melee animation rate by 25% and reduces the cooldown between melees by 25%. So really fantastic for melee spam. So with all that in mind, I think the rapid fire is a must take on this just for that faster charge. The laser helps you with some consistency, but the extended mag also helps you a lot avoid or have 3 extra shots on spawn, which is nice. I don't think the actual mag size is too necessary. You should typically be reloading this, I'd say, in between kills and playing close to the top of the mag. So 5 versus 8 I don't really care about, but those extra 3 shots can really come in handy. Fast melee is okay. Frankly, I find that it's a little more consistent to use a sidearm to finish off someone that's weak with this thing, because if you're really up close, ideally you should be getting kills. If you don't get kills in a single shot, you've probably lost the fight at many levels of play. So you really want to be going for that one-shot kill up close. And further away, fast melee is obviously not going to do much for you, but I can definitely see where some people might enjoy it if maybe you can't quite get those one-shots consistently. And then extended barrel, I personally would avoid it. I think any situation where the extended barrel is nice, even though it's short range, as you can see, the fall-off starts happening at 6 meters. Without the laser, you know, you're really going to start whiffing shots. You could go for a laser extended barrel build, I suppose, for a bit more of like a sniper charger, but then you're losing out on the really fast rapid fire charge up time, which really hurts it. So for me, I would go rapid fire and typically laser, sometimes extended mag. Sidearms, coil, you can really use as a pocket primary to counteract this gun's main weakness, which is distance. The only issue with the coil is obviously you can't use it for quick follow-up kills. If you don't quite get someone with your charger, it's going to be a little less good than the Helios, which is ideal for that, but then you're struggling at range a little bit more. And then last but not least, the Tetra. I just don't think you really need sustained close range DPS quite as much with this, so I tend to avoid it. Equipment, the radar lets you do some insidious things with corners, so I think this is super slept on. You know, I would definitely highly recommend bring a radar, see how it goes, pre-charge corners, and just watch your kills go up. Time bubble is sort of the classical pairing with it, you know, for faster charge times. Not bad at all. And last but not least, regen aid. It's good here, just not as good as the other two, I think. If you're needing that sustained healing to keep you alive, you're probably in a spot where one of these would have netted you the kill already anyways, so that's just my take. And sorry, I realize this video is going quite long, but I just want to make sure you guys have all of the info and insights I could give. So, the Quantum is interesting. It actually has the same damage values you'll see as the Tetra pistol, so the Tetra really is quite similar, where both of them have that burst length of 4, and 12 and 16 damage values, so same shots to kill. The burst delay at base is a bit faster, and then the bullet delay is a little bit slower. So the total time is like, I think, mildly faster with the BR, but not by much. That said, the Quantum has a lot of attachments you can use to help out with that and reduce things further. Mag size is great. Reserves are also great. You get 12 bursts at base, or no, that's horrible math. 9 bursts at base, 12 bursts with the extended mag. The recoil, again, doesn't look like much, but definitely builds up within the shot, within the burst as you go up, so be wary of that. And then the other interesting thing here is all of the burst rifles have no spread. So you'll notice, similar to the Carbine, we have no damage drop-off, but we also have no spread here as well. Or wait, sorry, the Carbine does have damage drop-off. Similar to the Carbine, we have no spread on the burst rifle, but we also have no damage drop-off with this as well. This will hit just as hard across the map as right next to you, making it a favorite of mine for Onslaught. So with all that said, that means that extended barrel is no longer a necessary attachment to have on the gun. So we replace it with bullet burst, which quite simply just sort of reduces the actual time between shots in the burst. So it makes the burst itself come out faster, whereas rapid fire makes the time between bursts a lot faster. So rapid fire, you can fire off more bursts over time, I suppose. Not quite, though. I'll explain more on that in a second. Bullet burst, on the other hand, makes the burst itself really fast, so all 4 of those shots are going to come out a lot faster once you pull the trigger. So with all that in mind, if you look at the total amount of time you're saving with the bullet burst versus the rapid fire, you actually get more sustained fire over time, like more bullets over time, if you just take bullet burst instead of rapid fire, which I find quite interesting. So with that in mind, I think bullet burst for me is a great attachment. I'll always bring it. And then I'll typically bring either the grip for more consistent headshotting or piercing ammo just to, again, make those shots land a little bit more consistently further out. Good though, I mean, you can never say no to an extra 3 bursts or what have you. With extended mag, that's enough for a kill and some change. And then rapid fire also just really helps you get more bursts out. But ultimately, if you're bringing bullet burst, your DPS is already very competitive, and so I would say making the gun consistent and really nailing that 2 burst is the best thing you could really do for it once you have bullet burst equipped. So with that said, sidearms, if you don't get that 2 burst off, so if you hit all body shots, they're going to be left very low. The Helios does a phenomenal job just of cleaning them up. And then the Coil as well, is just also fantastic. It's nice to have something that's a little harder hitting that you can lead with, and then you can swap off to the Quantum and possibly even 1 burst them, I suppose, which would be pretty cool. I've never done that, but, maybe you guys have in some of your clips. The Tetra's fine. It's kind of just like bringing a second Quantum, I feel like, but I like having something that offers a little more flexibility. So with all that in mind, I pair it with the time bubble first, typically. That really just makes those bursts lightning quick. After that, the regen nade's nice, just because you're going to be playing a little more aggressively with this than the Carbine, I would say. So you don't need to keep people off your back quite as much, and the sustained healing from the nade might be able to keep you going a little bit more. Again, the radar's nice if you want to retreat from people sneaking up on you, but you can really duel with this BR up close, I'd say. Especially if you bring a Helios with you, you can just 2 body and then swap to your sidearm and net the kill, and it's pretty much game over for them at that point. Last but not least, we have the Phasma SMG. So similar to the shotgun, this has the same body and headshot damage, so you should always be aiming for center of mass here. This one's interesting insofar as it fires projectiles, so those projectiles are pretty wide, so you're going to notice a lot of these stats are actually strictly worse on paper than the Synapse. Like, the fire rate is only 0.001 faster. The damage is strictly worse. The mag size is 5 lower. You have less reserves. You have less recoil, but, it's not like that really matters all that much with an SMG, especially when it's projectile. And the spread is, like, horrific compared to the AR, where it's going to be a 2-degree half-angled cone rather than that half a degree, which really hurts, I'd say. And then obviously very short drop-offs, like, 15 meters is your first drop-off point, so you really want to be using this thing up close. But the reason why it's so nice compared to the Synapse is that it's very user-friendly to use, Those projectiles, they travel at 80, I believe this is meters per second, but I could be wrong there. So decently fast, and on top of that, they're just very large, I would say, so it's pretty easy to overwhelm your opponents and confuse them a little bit if you're firing right at them. So I'd say it's a bit of a disruptor weapon in a sense. And then on top of that as well, just because the projectiles again are so large, the plasma that you're firing, you end up landing a lot of shots, even if your reticle's decently off course from the target, and that helps offset the spread just a hair. So with all that in mind, I like to take the laser just because, again, it really helps you narrow in on that horrific spread angle. I think that's the biggest issue with this SMG. Nailing that down to a 1.5 degree spread is absolutely massive at a spread angle this large, so I always take the laser. And then I highly recommend the extended mag just because it's so quick firing. These 35 shots, you're going to burn through them in no time. And worse yet, you're probably going to be overkilling targets a fair bit, because bear in mind, you have to wait for those projectiles to actually reach the enemy before they do damage. So often you're going to be firing while the enemy is hypothetically already dead by projectiles already in the air, unless you have incredibly good projectile control, I suppose, where okay, I'm going to stop firing, and then you risk leaving them on a sliver of health, which is no good. So with all that said, I think extended mag works well. Extended barrel, if you like to spray at range, it can give you a little bump to damage, but personally for me, I like to use the Phasma very aggressively with portals, so the extended barrel doesn't do too much for me. And again, rapid fire, same reasons as the Synapse. I just don't think it does all that much at fire rates this fast for you, especially because here it's going to make your overkilling issue much, much worse, so I tend to avoid it. And then the grip, the recoil really just isn't all that bad, especially given that it's an SMG with pretty wide spread. You're going to be feeling that a lot more than the recoil, and you'll be playing with this very close anyways, so there's no real sense in making it effective at beaming across the map, in my opinion. So to pair with it, I like the coil. It pretty much covers all this gun's weaknesses, which is it's very high damage, low fire rate, high range, where this is very high fire rate, low damage, low range. The Tetra is nice as well, just in case, you need a secondary, like you get hit with a reload, because again, this thing burns through ammo, so the Tetra can save your bacon in those last effort scenarios where you're like, okay, someone just ran up on me in the middle of the reload, I need to swap and start shooting, so the Tetra is good there. And then Helios, last but not least, it's good again for fishing off ship targets, but I just think the other two are better. Equipment, I tend to use the Regenerate on this the most. If you're playing very aggressively, the Regenerate's going to help you just mitigate some of the damage coming at you, which inevitably it's going to be coming your way. Time Bubble also is just fantastic if you just run up on someone with the portal and you just go right through. You can really just nail them real fast with that boosted fire rate. Just, again, be super, super wary of overkilling with the ammo. And then last but not least, the radar. This is a very mobile gun, so I don't think the radar suits getting too many kills with it. I tend to use it pretty aggressively. I think that's where it shines. So for me, the radar is like, if I drop one, then I'm usually gone before I get much more use than like 1 or 2 kills out of it. So for me, I'm very much a fan of using these two more so. But anyways, yeah, that was the Meridian Sandbox I just went over. I'm sorry, I just realized this was a 45-minute video, which is crazy. But hopefully you guys learned a thing or two about the weapons stats in the game. I suppose really quickly, just to go over my favorite builds with each gun. AR, I love grip laser, grip mag typically, sometimes extended barrel and onslaught. I always bring piercing ammo, extended mag on the carbine. Charger, rapid fire is key, and I think laser's the best, followed by extended mag. Quantum, I always bring bullet burst with either grip or piercing ammo, just for more consistent 2-burst kills. Phasma, laser extended mag helps a lot with that aggressive playstyle, running up on enemies and making all those shots count. Helios, I think piercing ammo is great for consistent follow-up shots. Coil, you really want that extended barrel, I'd say, for the additional range, really capitalize on its strengths and push that out a little bit further. And then last but not least, Tetra. Laser just helps it, again, nail those really close-up two-burst kills similar to the Quantum. But anyways, that is about it for me. These stats obviously are all subject to change, so a lot of what I said here may not be relevant in the future. And sorry again for the long video, but I hope everyone enjoyed and learned a little something. If enough people enjoyed this, I'll probably go through the Eros and the Sabrask weapons as well. Maybe spend a little less time explain what the stats do since I did so here, and then just focus on the guns themselves. But anyways, that's it for me, and I hope you all have a nice day. See ya.